It's loading. I'll let you know when we're like,
Perfect.
yeah, and now it's directing. And I think we've done it. On up 10. Yeah. Is it working?
It says
I
that
think
we're
it's,
live. Yes.
yeah, I think we're live. I think that's working. Oh, the gods of technology, goddesses of technology. Please stay with us for the duration of this wonderful interview. So, oh, wow, Marina, we made it. We're here
We are
together.
here. Yes.
Thank you. And thank you for being open to being interviewed by me. I am so honored and thrilled to have you as an interviewee and to, well, have you in my life in
Hmm.
general. But thank you for being here.
It's an
And
honor and a pleasure. I'm
I
really
would love to introduce you to the community that doesn't know you. So, Marina Ejova is a goddess on a mission. She is on a mission to restore the balance of feminine energy in the world. And she's also the founder of Embodied Feminine and many, many, many more things. She's a shaman, she's a yoga teacher, she's a tantric and love pillar, and she's a phenomenal friend and mother. And my goodness, you have so many facets of you. And this is one of the reasons why I felt so deeply called and excited to have this conversation with you and to have it live um, so that the community can get a real sense of the uniqueness that you are and what you bring into the world because of all these parts of you that you've developed and discovered and enhanced and expand and all these things. So I would love for you to start also by talking more about embodied feminine, and then we'll dive more into all these other facets of you.
thank you, Mel, for such a heartfelt introduction. So the embodied feminine, and it's it's a journey always, right? It's like
Mm,
I sometimes feel that the project or our baby, our business, our mission often finds us. It's like Rumi says it, what you seek is also seeking you. So it's been a
mm,
journey. So yeah, I've been in the personal development industry, and then the holistic with the meditation and the yoga and understanding how the body works. And then the shamanic trainings came in, and then the tantra came in. And then it's like I was navigating and getting to know my own body, right? Like, how does the mind operate, the emotions, how does the body react, and really run the show as well. And that's where, so I would say for the last 15 years, probably for the first 15 years of my spirituality, I was going from heart up. I was looking for this ascension and connection with spirits, and tapping into my intuition and hearing the voice of the intuition and knowing. And it was going from heart upwards. And then the yogic traditions too, it's all about ascension. It's all about transcending the body and going beyond. So I feel like it's been going from here up here. It's all the upper chakras. And then about 2 years ago, I went into a shamanic vision quest. And my total experience was like, yo, it's time for me to go from heart downwards and get to know my
mm,
womb, my sexuality, my body, and really take all this amazing, blissful knowledge, experiences through the heart and back into the body and really embody it. So
mm,
that's how the embodied feminine was literally born, is to embody the spirituality and embody everything into our life, like all around us, right? Into our home, our partnerships, our love life, and especially our body. So this is the vehicle, the sacred vehicle that we have. So getting to know it, it's complex on so many levels, but ultimately we are here in the now in this precious body of ours. So living that.
yes. And you bring that into the work of the embodied feminine. So mainly the embodied feminine caters to women entrepreneurs and having, supporting them developing their business holistically and from my experience, that bringing the yin and the yang, the feminine and the masculine, and having this beautiful balance, which is such a unique way of looking at it. I mean, for me, it was like, whoa, this is business flipped on his head. Like it's a whole new way of being and expressing and dreaming. And so would you like to talk a little bit more about that, this unique view
Yeah.
that you bring?
Well, again, everything that I teach, I share is from my own experience, right? So before the embodied feminine, I had 9 other businesses. I've had a yoga studio. I've had like, private meditation yoga practice. I've done retreats, events, and a whole bunch of like real estate business. So I've been around business for some time. Like I've been on my own entrepreneur for almost 20 years now.
Wow.
So, I started in the medical industry as an HR in the medical. And I thought that was like an amazing job. I was working with doctors and I had this like important role. And then I saw the behind the scenes and I got really disappointed that it was not a wellness industry. And I was experiencing these like burnouts. I was seeing patches of light coming back home after work. I was drained. And I'm like, this can't be it. You know, I studied for this. I got into the place. I'm hanging out with these amazing people and I'm sick. So it's not working for me. And then I have people that I deal with that are lining up that are also sick, and they're having all these side effects from medication. So I kind of saw the behind the scenes of the medical industry. And that's how I found yoga, meditation. And I'm like, okay, I've got control here on what's coming in, the perceptions. And then started to build these different businesses, wherever life took me. It was like, okay, I got into real estate at some point. So let's do that. And I realized that these businesses didn't really last for me, whether I lost my drive, my passion, or it wasn't sustained, like because there was no sustainability in there. So it was like, it may sound really good that you can get, an amazing commission and make, $20,000, $30,000 on one commission. That sounds really great. But is it really sustainable with who
Yeah.
I am on all these levels, right? Am I in the right industry? Am I interacting with, the right clients, the people? Am I elevating, my overall mission in life, the vibration, the energy in this world? And what am I
Mm.
serving?
Mm.
So I think these businesses never like really worked out for me. It was either I pulled out or it crumbled because it wasn't sustainable. So I really feel like the embodied feminine was born from that place of what are all of these parts of me? How can they be represented? Yes, in my mission, in my work. It's coming from again the mind level, the heart level, the passion, and combining all the tools of like, okay, well, what is my toolbox?
Mm.
What are my gifts? What can I naturally do for hours and weekends? And I never run dry. So joy and passion is a strong value of mine. So I really highly include that in my work today. And that's why like I practice that and I teach that is like something can sound like a great idea, like taking a road trip or, whatever, like moving somewhere, moving to Bali or going to Tulum. Like, yeah, that sounds amazing. Is it sustainable on all the levels, right? So we look at this like long term, we look at the patterns, we look at, what are the habits and what will you naturally be drawn to when the storm comes, when the challenges come, right? Like, you're an entrepreneur. So in the business, it's like, we for sure will encounter these challenging waves. And the only thing's going to pull us through is if our heart is fully in it, like
Mm.
200%, then we'll find a way because that's
Yes.
who we are. And as entrepreneurs, I think we are the business in a way, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it's about sustainability and, that representing you in all your aspects and facets.
I love it. If I make the link to a part of our theme today, which is pleasure and boundaries, and the pleasure part, from my experience of being coached by you, of taking your Master Heart program this summer, that you really did bring this element of having pleasure while doing your business, which is a very new way of thinking for me, completely new, you know? Uh, what I would hear, and I think a lot of people hear, is you have to work hard, you have to focus, you have to, you know, there's very yang ways of looking at it, like go, 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 da, 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 and which is all good, but to sort of like settle in and listen and dream and have pleasure, you know, have fun. Like the what is your dream, you know, goal? What like what does that look like? And how can we bring a little bit of that in today? You know, like we have the ultimate big one, and like you help us bring, like, how can you insert a little bit every day, you know, so that when it does get hard, when the starts to happen, it's like, oh wait, like I can still have that little nugget that I can hold on to of like, I love doing this, and why do I love doing, and then inspiration comes back and possibility comes back. And so I feel like that's a lot of what you bring that is I'm going to say unique, because to me it's extremely
Yeah.
different, and it
Yeah.
stands out.
One thing that I want to add to that, and you describe it beautifully. One thing that I want to add to that is, in this world, we're trained to think and exist in these time slots of like, well, when you graduate, then you'll get a job. Once you get a job, then you'll get the right paycheck. Once you get the right paycheck, you get the right mate, and then you make babies or you go and travel the world. So there's always like the final destination somewhere. Once you get there, then you'll get this, right? And I've done that so many times in these loops. And I was like, well, first of all, the final destination, hell knows whether that's going to happen or not, right? Because it's like such a narrow scenario. It's like, I want to date this person that's blonde and 5'7" and this and that. And it's like they show up and they're not exactly like what I envisioned them to be, let's say, you know? So life is just like that. So we'll be constantly disappointed if we're chasing that carrot.
Mm.
So the process of joy and pleasure along the way here is crucial for me. You know, we've all heard the saying that's a little cheesy, but it's about the journey and not the destination. But literally, it's about finding this, you know, joy and pleasure with every interaction, with every, you know, move we make, and celebrating these little wins. Like, oh, today I sent my mailing list out. You know, we're doing this amazing interview right now. Like, how fun is this, right? And making it
Mm.
as like part of my business values is joy and pleasure.
Yeah.
And I won't go into a project, a collaboration, a retreat, or anything that doesn't smell or does not give me the experience of joy and pleasure.
I love that. And I feel it takes courage to do that.
Yeah.
It takes courage to follow your pleasure, because when I started thinking about this theme and pleasure, and because, you know, we connected a little bit beforehand, and it was like, well, pleasure is more than just sexual pleasure, you know, it's there are all various types of pleasures. And then I stopped and I went, do I ever ask myself, like, what is my pleasure today? Like, or what is my pleasure in this? Or, and then I realized that I get scared to follow my pleasure, because I'm like, well, I haven't gone through the rational. Does it make sense? Is this going to work? Is this, you know, like, or it's scary, like it's in the unknown. I don't know. So I love that that's your value and you stand so strongly in it, because for me, it inspires me, and it also gives me permission to be like, can I follow my pleasure? Where would that lead me? Where would that take me? So I love that. I love that you bring that.
And
And
again, it's like, where did that come from? We have to look at the history of how we've been conditioned and trained. Does our society, does our culture train us to really follow our pleasure every day? Like, is that on CNN? Like, people just wake up and go, what's your joy today? Where's the joy trail? Like, no, it's always like, work hard, do what you got to do. So it depends on cultures. Some cultures have it more. Like in my case, my culture was like, work was the only excuse you can have. You know, there's obligations, there is family, there is, you know, kids, if you've got kids, there is your spouse, you know, so being the good wife, being the good partner really matters. And then that, what does that end up with? You know, give to your work, give to society, give to your kids, give to your partner. And there we are with leftovers of like the tiny little espresso cup of like, there, you know, there's drops left. And it's like, well, if I, you know, get something out of there, that'll be for me. So it's a whole like reversing this whole conversation. And it takes courage. You nailed it. It's a courageous act today of just declaring it, embracing it, and following that. And it takes a lot of courage to also say no to a lot of other things that come your way.
Oh, and there comes the boundaries. Right on in.
Yeah.
So, in making decisions for you, if your priority is your pleasure, do you make space for any of the rational? Like, is this doable? Is this, you know, does this make sense? Like, do you go there at all? Or is it like you really connect to the sensation of the joy that it brings, the energy, and then you follow through? Like, how does that work for you?
Okay, well, there's a few things here, you know. So yeah, I follow pleasure, but pleasure is not the only thing. Like, you know, I usually invite people to look at it as like a set of values, at least like four legs of a table. Like we've got some core values that we'll always fall back onto. So, you know, pleasure and joy is one of them. It's one of my pillars. I've got, you know, three other ones. Contribution is one of them. Serving in the world is one of them. So it's like, I'm driven by that as well. So we need to look at other things that come in the equation. But to tell you that, yeah, joy and pleasure is in the equation, but is it my, you know, I always follow that, or I just do that without, you know, working hard or without doing something that I don't necessarily feel like doing? No. You know, that's when the whole right brain, left brain, masculine, feminine comes in, where it's like, you know, if you want to write a book, if you want to launch an online course, if you want to travel to Asia somewhere, you know, it's not going to do it. It's not just going to happen by itself. The online course is not just going to like poop appear by us meditating, you know?
Oh goodness, no.
I can have all kinds of pleasure I want. It's not going to materialize itself, you know? So yeah, we got to curve out that time and put our head and heart together. It's like the masculine and feminine, the energy of creation, right? That then brings something into the material world. So it's both. But I find the energetic alignment is more full for me when I tap into that feminine energy, when I'm in gratitude state, when I'm in joy. I find the things that really, you know, light me up in there. And then I go, okay, now I'm in the right state of mind. I feel that vision is seated in my heart, in my body. Now let's kick into the masculine and create a business plan, a little plan of the day, how to get there. Right? Wow. So it takes both. It's like we're constantly in between the two.
This balance, it's so important. Like you talk about it, and I'm already sensing this sort of peace that is settling in, you know. It's like, oh, right, there's balance. And then there's the pillars. I love what you're like the four, because yeah, there is pleasure, but like you said, it's not the only thing that holds the table. You need like a few more things that keeps this stability, this grounding. And so that just really inspired me. And again, this yin yang, this balance that you bring, it's amazing.
And again, if we tip over on one side more, because you talked about it in the beginning, if we go all into the head and we're only plowing through and operating from the mind, it's like, I got to do this, and I got this long to-do list, and I got to go. What happens is, you know, we can burn out, we get fed up, you know, then we need like, you know, weeks of vacation to recover from this project, you know, if we are not weaving it and tending to it on a daily, I would say, you know, it depends. Some people can go for a few days. It's the right, the right formula for everyone. But I find that's when I get like nurtured, and I'm in the flow state, and then I'm in the in that um, yeah, like just executing state kind of thing.
It's, yeah, I get really discouraged when I'm in my yang because that's natural for me. I go into the yang, I go into the doing. I could do forever. I've got ideas, I've got skills, I've got all these things in the do. But yeah, if I'm just in that, what starts to happen is I get super discouraged. And
Mhm.
then it's like I didn't even listen to my own inner boundary of like exhaustion and pressure. Like it for me comes with pressure as well. So your approach for me, for someone like me who's like, you know, like that, with most of our life that needs more femininity, and it helps me to respect my own boundaries and to also find some health in there. And so we touched, what was it that you said? And I said, oh, and then boundary comes right in. And I can't even remember. Do you remember what I said, or what you
Well,
said?
I think we talked about how as women we're conditioned to take care of everybody else kind of first, and then we're left off with the tiny little crumbs for ourselves. So you go, okay, that's when the boundaries come in, of course.
Right, right. And so is that something that you bring to your workshops? Like, do you speak of boundaries? Do you bring that as an important aspect to look at, to affirm, to claim, to understand, to get clear on? Yeah. How does
Yeah.
that?
Well, first of all, I want to define boundaries, because people have very different understanding on what boundaries are, and that can mean different things for different people. I'll share my personal understanding and how I live them. To me, a boundary is constantly moving. It's not set in one place. So it's constantly to be, addressed or tended to. And I see boundaries as a place where we meet. I see boundaries, it's a scary word. I wish there was another word for it. Um, but one of my teachers, her name is Crystal Dawn, she calls them bridges. So it's a place where we actually meet. And how, I can go into, you take it wherever you want. We can go into sexuality, we can go into work, for example, or our vision in life, purpose. But when I do the vision workshops, for example, and when we set a goal, it's something that has to challenge us a little. So we're not all that comfortable.
Mm.
And then it has to be something that excites us a lot. And it's that fine line of both that creates an exciting vision, an exciting project, an exciting experience for us. Because if we're too comfortable, we're not growing. We're not going to, we're going to kind of like lie back a little. We're not as alert. And if we are not excited about it, if it's just super challenging and not exciting enough, there's just not enough pleasure and juice. Like,
Yeah, the energy is going to run out like at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how I define them, is that fine line, first of all.
Huh.
Yeah.
I like what you're saying, because it also the visual of the bridge, um it takes away this idea that setting boundaries is also like controlling somebody else's behavior, like not liking somebody else's behavior and then saying like I don't like, it has nothing, like it's like, oh, where do we meet in this? Like I like taking responsibility, like I don't, something's happening for me, let's meet on this bridge. Like
Yeah.
this, yeah, I like this bridge idea very, very much.
So I got a little visual here for you and for
Okay.
our people. And I don't know if somebody's following the live, but
It's a good question. I'm mostly on the Zoom right now. Let me go pop in
if
to
people have
see.
questions or comments, maybe we can ask them what they think boundaries are for them, or how they.
Well, I hear bridges, love it. Boundaries are what we need to work on. Love this. Yeah, yeah. It's something that is definitely, I mean, for women in particular, I feel that for a very long time we weren't allowed to have any boundaries. Like we just weren't even allowed to have them. So it's definitely an ongoing conversation and practice for us. But I'd love to see your visual
So
on boundaries.
I thought about it today. I'm like, okay, how can I explain boundaries? And, so we've got circles here on my bangles. So let's say you and I are playing right now, right? Like, we're creating something, and this is my circle and this is yours, right?
Okay.
So first of all, it helps me when you know your boundaries and you also know your pleasure, your joy. What are we here to experience? So both questions are really important to know. And the first question is like, actually, what do you want to experience? Where do you want to play? Like today we are creating this epic interview together, right? Like you called me up and it's like, oh, let's just play. Let's talk about pleasure and boundaries. So yeah, okay, what are my boundaries and what are your boundaries? So it's like, okay, we have a time container. It's gonna be under an hour. We gotta look good online. We gotta look presentable. Whatever those are, right?
Yeah, we have a theme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I come in and I'm like, well, this is also okay. I'm willing to play with you. Yes, it's a yes. But maybe an hour is too much. Let's do 45 minutes. And whatever they are. But knowing what my boundaries are and what your boundaries are here, and then seeing where do they cross. So it's just like shading area in the middle. It's like, okay, well, that's where we play. Sometimes it's this. Sometimes it's like, wow, well, my desires fully match yours. It's like, that's a lot of room to explore. And sometimes it could be a little more narrow, right? Very, very little sometimes. Right now we're in this lockdown crunch. So I was thinking about this morning, like the boundaries are probably like just here. It's like they're just touching,
Oh,
like we can connect. We can only do Zoom, So it's like, okay, let's try this out. They can be here. So it's like, okay, well, this is not the right time or the right person, So knowing our boundaries helps a lot the other person. Yeah. And also knowing what are we in for in the first place.
I agree with that so much. Like knowing our boundaries, the way that you just showed it was lovely because it makes me feel safe. It's like, oh, this is like you see me, first of all, you respect me, your boundaries and my boundaries. So this is like, it makes me feel safer. And then, oh, okay, so where do we fit? How do we fit, in this? Yeah.
So
I like that.
again, I see it as this masculine, feminine, or flow and structure piece. I love to, balance those two out. And it's like, well, the masculine goes, okay, what is our container? Let's know where are our boundaries at. Are we here at midnight? Are we here till this time? What is okay? What is not okay? And once the container is set and we agree on it, then there is all this room to play in here. So actually having clear boundaries and knowing our boundaries then creates more space and there's more freedom.
I love that.
And safety.
And safety. Yeah, definitely. But then what if the boundaries are imposed on you? Like what we're experiencing right now with the government, like feeling like we have all these boundaries. We briefly touched upon that in our conversation 2 days ago. Like, how do we find our pleasure when there are boundaries, like very clear and very like that? Yeah, the circles, we kind of have this little bit of space to play.
Or we're here.
Yeah.
We can also be like right here.
Or there. Like, how do you find, your pleasure when your desire is to maybe connect and you can't?
If you can't, it could be frustration.
It could be what?
It could just result in frustration.
In frustration, yeah.
Disappointment, sadness, anger. It's like, I can't connect with my favorite people. That sucks. That, and we have because there's no meeting point. We don't see it. Or there is none, unless we find one.
Well, I mean, we get pretty creative when we're imposed some strict limitations and
Yeah.
boundaries. I feel like in March when it first happened, I mean, the amount of creativity that oozed out of everyone I know and just and beyond, like in the world, it was touching. It
Yeah.
was really touching to see. So there's also something that happens there, right? Like we're forced to, if we want to be in pleasure, if we want to follow, our bliss, then we find
Yeah.
new ways to go about it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And again, I think the first step is acknowledging our reaction, our emotions.
Mm.
I'm feeling there was a little bit of expectations sometimes, whether we want to call it expectations or not. But if I was expecting to, have I had all my weekends booked. I had a different set of expectations for the next couple of weeks.
Right.
And now it's like, okay, how am I feeling? And again, addressing exactly like authentically what is here,
Mm.
what is present. I think we can't deny the emotions, right? We can't deny the feelings and the emotions. And the more we repress them, the more it's going to backfire. So the faster and the quicker we can express that, we can address that this sucks, I don't like it, I'm upset here. Then we go into the acceptance.
Mm.
And then from acceptance, we might move into inspiration or creativity. Be like,
Mm.
okay, what can we do?
Mm.
Maybe we can go out of town. Maybe we can connect on Zoom. Maybe we can have our own pleasure with just us and get to know us more. So we can get to that creative stage when we pass the sadness, the anger, neutrality, acceptance, peace, and then creativity.
Yes, definitely welcoming everything that is first before not forcing that I just want to be in joy right now. Like how can I? Yeah,
Yeah,
not bypassing all these
yeah,
other layers that are
yeah,
so important as
yeah.
well, How incredible. So I'd like to know more about you, like in terms of where do you struggle with having pleasure? Like, is there a part of your life somewhere that it's more of a challenge for you to bring? Like for me, it's my business. I have such a hard time. So
Hmm.
even though I love what I do, like in the daily, it's keeping that there and not getting discouraged.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So where is it for you?
Where is it for me? Probably physically.
Ah,
And I had this big aha revelation moment, I think in January, where I came back from one of my trainings from the desert. We did the sexual somatic training with Kudoshka. And I came back, and my takeaway was like how much I've denied or forgot my own pleasure, like self pleasure, and just like loving my own body, my own like having me time with
mm,
and because I wear so many hats, and I've got a kid, and I've got a partner, and we do a lot of long distance, and we do a lot of traveling and work, yada yada yada. It's a challenge, and it's a practice for me to make time for me
mm,
and really connect, because I find for women, for myself for sure, I need to be in a relaxed state of mind to get to my physical body, my physical pleasure. Because if
yes.
my mind is on and running, then there's a little more anxiety or thoughts or what if all that stuff. So it's a little more challenging. So I need to create these. First of all, I need to create peace, harmony. So working out, meditating, really creating a state of mind that's conducive for that,
Mm,
and then connecting with my own body, whatever that pleasure is.
mm.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's really what stands out for me is taking the time, taking the time to give yourself pleasure, however, like taking a bath or whatever,
yeah,
however um, or contact,
yeah,
it, that also I find is challenging for women to give ourselves that time and space.
yeah. And I was really like, the big breakthrough was to which point sometimes, I don't always know what my like go fors, my passions, or my really juicy places where I'm like, yeah, I want to create that experience or this experience. It was a little bit like, well, let's talk with my partner. Let's see what we want to create together. So there was always this like other, person, someone else in this conversation with me of how do we have pleasure together. So the big breakthrough was like, well, where is my pleasure first? Where is my boundary? Where is my, zones in my body that want to wake up? They want to be touched. They don't want to be touched. So I think it's a journey. That's why I said boundaries are constantly moving, because we simply don't know where they are sometimes. It's like baby steps. Like it's like we're relearning. We're like kids again in these areas, especially if people want to have like conscious sexuality, conscious touch. I know a lot of women are longing for, conscious partnership and, deeper connection, tantric connections. Well, that requires to know ourselves.
Yes.
We can't
Yeah.
expect someone else to give it to us, our partner, to provide that experience for us. We
Yeah.
need to learn that language. We need to understand how this vehicle operates. Again.
Oh, I strongly believe that. I strongly believe that in order to attract what we desire, that we need to give it to ourselves. I really, really do. I believe that it's not always a one-way, like clear path like that, but it's something about when I offer myself the love and attention and support and connection and everything that I feel that I'm lacking, and like I'll find a moment somehow, make the time, and then poof, like magic, it kind of comes around, not as I expected it, but it does. It's like the magic of this
Right.
world.
Right. And when we are in that juicy state, right, for women, like, when we wake up on all these levels, if you visualize it as the chakra system, let's say we're like this Christmas tree, right, that just wakes up all of a sudden, right? We become magnetic and juicy and like everybody wants to play with you all of a sudden. So it takes a little bit of work in the beginning to take that responsibility for our pleasure, and then to really, light ourselves up,
Mm, mm,
right? And
self.
then it becomes even more interesting and fulfilling to, invite other people in that bubble with us.
Yes, yes. And then that again, I love how you brought the movement and the boundary, this shaping thing that keeps shaping and defining itself and then kind of finding another way. Because we are always discovering ourselves anew, and we're also in relationship with different people, different situations. And so of course these boundaries, will be moving and shifting and claiming themselves differently every time, I think. And I believe that's beautiful. Like the more that we get to know ourselves, the more that we'll know how to place them, and but also we'll get to discover ourselves even more by being that malleable. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's making sense what I'm saying, but I'm just trying to make a connection in what you said. It's
absolutely. Well, that's one
speaking
of
to
the
me.
rules. Like, again, we're taught that like, don't make any mistakes. We're not supposed to stumble. Mistakes are not really welcome in this world of praise. But then how are we supposed to learn? How are we supposed to learn? So instead of like growing and expanding, as adults and our, these multidimensional beings, look around. There's a lot of contractions that happening, and people are getting bruised by, life, and they're actually closing down.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, okay, so one of the general rules or umbrellas on the boundary conversation is that, we're doomed to make mistakes.
Mm,
People are human. How did they know that they're not supposed to touch your face or your head? Maybe that's their favorite thing in the world.
mm,
They were offering you a gift, but that was your boundary, like, don't touch my face or my head, you know? So now we
Right.
know, and now I can communicate that, when we dance together, don't mess up my hair, don't touch my face. And then you can touch, everywhere else, let's say, or like,
Right.
yeah. So we can communicate that. And another thing that I want to say, it's like I see it as these like 3 layers to it. There is that personal level for us. Then there's the transpersonal, which is another party in here, you know. And then there is the third one, which would be, a bigger circle, is the collective.
Mm.
There's a collective boundary right now that we're addressing, where we're dealing with, right? So there are all these 3. So understanding them individually is really helpful. Because if
Mm-hmm.
not, they can all like get very messy very quickly, and
Right.
we can feel very lost and yeah, shaken by everything. But understanding like, okay, this is me, this is you and me, or you and your partner, that's our dynamic together. And then there's the community, or the work, or the collective dynamic as well.
That's good. Yeah. 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 That's very clear.
Mhm.
I like that. I like including, yeah, what's me, what's you, what are we in? What's being imposed on us, or are we imposing on other, or yeah, what's
Yeah,
looking at the like a whole part whole. I like
right.
that very
And
much, like how
understanding
you.
how my boundaries and my pleasure, my experience shifts when I enter this transpersonal space, or
Mm,
when I am in the collective versus being at home. That's why I said boundaries are constantly moving, because I might not have the same boundaries at home as I am when, I travel,
right.
or when I'm in this particular training, or in this, when I'm in the dance party with you, or when I'm, so that changes. Yeah.
Definitely. And you mentioned, that people are human and that they might make mistakes and that they might touch you, and that it's about having the conversation. And I think also having the conversation sometimes can be awkward, and that we might make mistakes in how we express our boundaries, but that it's a practice, and that, I often encourage the women I work with to, if it does happen that it came out awkwardly, that there's nothing wrong with going back and making it clear, and taking responsibility for, their experience, and then feels so much better, to
Mhm.
find clarity in that. Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that.
Totally. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
practicing on these, like, that's why practicing is key. You said it's not having it perfectly dialed in and knowing the conversation and what to say, knowing our boundaries clearly. The reality is we don't know, until we get in that space.
Right.
So practicing as much as possible with these simple little conversations is key before we get onto the bigger conversations.
Yeah, sometimes for me, I know that I have to, when when I feel uncomfortable, I have to slow down and talk, like feel and talk at the same time. So I don't know what I'm going to say, because I'm feeling, because I want to stay authentic to what's happening, because I have a tendency when my boundaries get crossed to get confused. So in order to not get confused and be able to speak my truth, I need to slow it down. That scares me, because I'm going into the unknown. I have no idea what I'm about to say. I just know that I have to feel and then express, and feel and express until I get clarity on what it is that I'm really going through. And then I'm like, oh, okay, so this is what's happening. But that little moment of like figuring it out as I feel, whew, I have to say that that shakes me right up. But that practice is essential, because if not, I get confused and my reaction is that I leave. And that doesn't help anybody. I don't feel safe. That person doesn't understand probably.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so it creates a whole, yeah, discord, or
Yeah.
yeah,
What happens
attachment.
is then we feel, you know, probably like less trust, less opening, right? Less safety. So instead of having, open boundaries, or like, a little knowing where they are and feeling that safety, they actually get smaller and they shrink. Now we're cautious. Now we're thinking about what is about to happen or what could happen.
Right.
If we don't, I always say this, not taking a decision is taking a decision, right? So sometimes
Yes.
we avoid a certain conversation is actually taking a decision. So we're allowing that boundary to remain unknown, uncertain. So I want to invite women to take responsibility for that. It's like stepping into that work and saying, yeah, I need to really stand for myself. I need to find that out. There's a lot of times our boundaries get crossed in our own families.
Oh, yeah.
I grew up in a family where my boundaries, like spatial boundaries, were literally crossed all the time, And I grew up
Yeah.
in a communist country, which is like, there is no boundaries, It's like, what do you mean you have personal space? The bathroom is your only personal space, probably. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's
Wow.
interesting, right? Just saying that, I need space, I need time, call me before you visit, knock before you come in. And it's reinforcing them,
Yeah.
reinforcing them.
Yes. And then there's you mentioned family, and to me right away, it's like, yeah, claiming boundaries with my family is very difficult because I'm afraid that I'll be rejected or I won't be loved, or, it comes from a very little Mel that was afraid to, claim her boundaries when she was young. And so I notice how, that discomfort comes up, but how choosing myself in
Mhm.
doing that, then the relationship gets much more meaningful, and like the safety that's created all of a sudden when I've taken the courage to speak my truth and to say, I don't like that. That's not okay with me. Then
Mhm.
yeah, there's a moment of like, whoo, like, okay, what's gonna happen, and the person is affected by it. But ultimately, if I stand in it, if I'm like, I'm choosing me, this is what I need, it'll shift. And then all of a sudden the relationship changes, and there's so much more joy and love and respect. And it's been a powerful practice in my life, for sure. For sure. But family, it's like, whoo.
Lifelong practice, for sure. Yeah. They're
It's a
not going
doozy.
anywhere.
Yeah. Let me just check in to see if anybody's commented and any
Definitely.
questions popping up for other people. Um, Oh, this is a great one. What kind of meditation would you advise to help with boundaries? Would you like to, is there anything, Marina, that comes up for you that you'd like to?
Um, the first thing that comes is a tantric practice for women about just self pleasure and discovering pleasure in our bodies.
Mm,
Because again, it's like we live in this body, so we operate with this vehicle, and all our memories, our traumas, our desires, our longings, our needs live in the body. So I think a very powerful practice for women is connecting with their bodies, with their wombs,
mm,
with their heart. And, let's even remove the sexuality from here. Because about sexuality, people get sometimes like, oh, I'm going to go down to my yoni and that's where pleasure lives. It's like, no, let's discover pleasure beyond your yoni. So, like, let's play with and let's discover like the ears, you know, the neck,
mm,
and see how your body, operates. So that's a wonderful, I think, practical meditation. It's like a meditation in motion that will give you an entire experience, a journey. There are some parts of your body that might feel sadness, grief, because maybe they haven't been touched, they haven't been loved, right? That's the number one thing for women is like, issues with their bodies and their appearances, how they look and how they feel about themselves. So again, those memories live deep in their bodies. And then how can we possibly be met or loved by our partner if we don't have that capacity for ourselves? right? So
Mm.
it's like the simple practice of just caressing your body, like before you go to bed, maybe seeing like, have a little conversation with your body, like, what does my body want? Does it want, more firm touch, more touch of presence, or these like tiny little nail like finger touching, that can be a really cool practice for women to understand their boundaries and be like, okay, here I like to be touched in a very gentle way and a little more firm, like on my shoulders or back. And having that practice with themselves first is a great place to start.
I like
And
that.
then, sometimes we'll have this even dynamic with my partner where we'll have a night sometimes where we'll just explore touch without sexuality or without, that turning into sex or, physical connection necessarily, you know. So how can we just, again, travel on that edge?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that you can discover on that edge.
Yes.
Again, we've conditioned ourselves to be like, well, pleasure is down there. And I don't know, maybe around my neck a little bit or my breast, we've conditioned it to be such.
Mm.
We're
Mm.
multi-dimensional and multi-orgasmic. We can literally have, an orgasm just playing with our hair. We could. Let's not deny ourselves that,
Yeah,
like,
please.
so yeah,
Wow.
it's all there, but by knowing our boundaries and where does the body wants to, yeah, waking it up.
Wow, that's really lovely. That's really lovely. You inspire possibility, you know? It's like, what are new ways of looking at it, new ways of experiencing pleasure, boundaries?
Mm-hmm.
I'm really appreciating your perspective, and there's a lot of this balance in everything that you bring. There's balance. And that's like the nugget I'm taking away from you definitely is like how to create balance in everything that I experience in my life, be it pleasure, boundaries, business, relationship, family, et cetera, personal,
Mm-hmm.
time. Definitely.
Yeah.
I want to know.
Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
did you want to add to that?
I wanted to say that balance creates sustainability.
Mm,
It's an investment
mm,
that in the long term it grows. Yeah.
mm. It's an investment. Mm. Such great, so juicy, so juicy.
We need some juiciness today, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's wonderful. I love everything. Like, it's interesting because we have conversations, often we talk about all sorts of things, but in this context, I get to really hear the essence, of all the magic that you bring. And
Hmm.
the word unique just keeps coming to mind. Like that's what it is for me. It's a very unique approach to life, to relationships, to work. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's it's very inspiring.
Thank you.
And I would like to, well, we'll complete soon, but I'd like to complete with knowing if you'd like to share any of your guilty pleasures.
Ooh, guilty pleasures. Guilty pleasures. Oh my God, senses. Like I've been so guilty and like I love this practice, the tantric practice of like really waking up the senses. So one of my pleasures when I go to yoga, I've been doing a lot of hot yoga, like 5, 6 times a week. And when I go to yoga, I have my earbuds. If they don't have music, I bring my own music. And then I have my like, cover up thing to cover for it. And I'll put essential oils on my mat, you know? And I dress it up in a whole personal experience for me.
Yeah,
Again, I love waking up the senses in the body. So that's my guilty pleasure. That's one, you
I
know.
love.
Yeah. What else is one of my guilty pleasures? Um, Being in nature. Like I'm such a nature lover. Um, there's actually one of the tantric ways of connecting with our orgasm, or that, sexual energy, is, one way could be with nature. So just really allowing the sunlight on your body. So not wearing clothes, not wearing, a pair of underwear, for instance, like, just gives you freedom, you know? So, and interacting with, like, just inviting wind in, the sun in, feeling your feet, being barefoot on the earth. It's like, that gives me a lot of pleasure, because again, I just feel so much more energy from all these elements that are playing with me. Yeah. So it's one of them, like, not being restricted in my body is like, just no underwear, no mask, no no bra.
I love it.
Like, it's just
None of it.
the other day, my partner goes, we're going into this place, and he goes, I have to wear a mask. I'm like, okay, I'll wear a mask, but I'm not wearing a bra.
Yes, full rebellion. That's amazing. Where to find your pleasure? Okay, I'll wear a mask now. That's so good. Well, I completely feel inspired. I wanna go sunbathe completely nude in nature right now. That's just what I want. It sounds like bliss. Oh, that's a great pleasure. Thank you, Marina. Thank you so much for taking the time to to share you, and to share what you do, and all the amazing things that you do in this, for women and in this world. You have a 5-day challenge coming up. Would you like to take a few minutes to share with the community what that's all about?
Yeah. Again, I got this message after we did the Master Heart this summer. I got this message from Spirit that was like, okay, 2020 has been an incredibly pivotal year for people, transformational year. And it's always, in the personal development industry, I was curious about, like, how do you, it's what you make of it. That's what makes the real difference. It's not the thing itself, but it's what we make of it. So right now, actually this weekend, we are in this 90-day crunch till the end of 2020. And 90 days, this magical number of, transforming our beliefs, our mindset, our new habits, locking new habit in. So that's the message that I received, was like, creating this container for women for like a 3-month journey to just finish strong. And the 5-day trampoline, it's a free challenge, is say yes to yourself. It's called Say Yes to Yourself. And in any way possible, maybe for someone is with, sexuality and physical pleasure. For someone else, it's these boundaries, saying yes to you, saying no to something else. For someone else, it's saying yes to more collaborations or more abundance into your life, the financial aspect of it. So whatever that is, people get to design it for themselves. But I'm going to be hosting these. Starts next Monday till Friday, and every day we're going to be exploring a topic in there. 12.
Wow.
Yeah.
How exciting. Well, I'll definitely put the link once, the video, I'll put the link to the 5-day challenge. It's on the embodied feminine, so I'll be able to share that. How really exciting. I'm super inspired. I want to do it. I'm hopping in. I'm like, what? 5-day challenge, this is so good. Yes, and the 90-day container, just, does that ever feel good? In this world right now where things are changing so rapidly, and the unknown, it's constantly, and I don't know where I'm going. To have consistency and support, and a place of safety to bring all of me, all of us there. Thank you for creating that. It's very powerful and very, it's gonna have an impact for sure.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marina. Shall we check really quickly to see if there's any questions? And
sure.
Let's see. Let's see. What do we have here? Comments. How do you their organism and not feel like it's my how do you strengthen their organism and not feel it? I'm not sure, Aliona, if I understand this question. Can you see it, Marina, the question by any chance?
I can't.
Okay, that's fine. Maybe we'll be able to respond after.
Okay.
So,
Oh, I think I see it now.
yeah, I'm not sure if I understand that.
Oh, how do you strengthen their organism and not feel like it's my fault? What if you're,
Oh,
and then she's got another question. So Alona, if you're listening, are you talking about the environment of how the environment or the people can respond to you stating your boundaries clearly? So whether it can be offensive or it can, make somebody uncomfortable and shake some trees in that sense, like strengthen their environment so they're more receptive. I think that's the question that she's asking about. That's
great,
yeah.
great answer.
Well, I think to answer that is understanding and really locking that in, that I'm not responsible for their reactions and I'm not responsible for their well-beings.
Mm.
And it's, again, one of the things that we've been conditioned as women is that we're responsible for everyone else's well-being. Well, when we say yes to everyone else, somewhere we're saying no to ourselves, right? So it's first of all understanding that how they will react, is not my responsibility. That's number one. And at the same time, there is a conscious language, conscious responsibility to how we communicate about our boundaries. So using the I statements instead of you, right? When you touch me there, I don't like that. Any negative comment, we need to know that any negative comment is like 5 times more damage of, the positive ones. So if we say something like, don't do that, it takes 5 compliments to make up for that.
Wow.
Especially for men, right? If you're connecting with men that's, in bed or something, it can be extremely hurtful to say, I really don't like it when you do this technique or that technique. It's like, oh, they're offering you pleasure and everything they've got. So when you say something like you, that can definitely hurt and shut someone down. Instead of using the you language, using the I language, I would prefer that we tried this. I love it when you do this. It really turns me on when, you do this or I experience that. So using the I language is one of the things. Yeah. And opening up the conversation. It's really a conversation about boundaries. It's like when you arrive with your boundary little circle and you know where your boundary is, it's not an automatic where people know theirs. So maybe it's asking the question. So if you feel that, well, they're saying yes, but they really feel like they have no idea what they're doing, well, check in with them. Check in. Are you comfortable doing that? Do you want to just do that for a minute and see how that feels? Instead of touching the entire body, start slow. Let's just play with the hand. Let's see how we do with that connection. Just our hands dancing together. Just,
I love it.
The directing or asking the right questions.
It reminds me of this. Someone once said that a sexual exploration, it's like ordering pizza with a friend, you don't just say to your friend, okay, well, I like pepperoni, cheese, and mushrooms, and I don't care about you, because we're having this pizza together, right? So it's like, what do you like on your pizza? And I love that, because we include, what is it that you like? It's the conversation. Have the conversation. Yeah. Wow, thank you so much for bringing all of you, Marina, all your wisdom and your experiences too. You've had such wonderful, is the word unique? I don't know, it just doesn't, it's like last word in my mind right now.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's fascinating and juicy and inspiring. And I want to thank you again for taking the time to chat with me and to share with the community, you know, what you do.
Thank
Do
you,
you want
Mel.
to say something?
Yeah, I want to say, because I see one more question that
Oh
I am reading, and I don't want to ignore this question. I think it's an important one. And the
yeah.
question is, what if your partner has trouble with erections?
Okay.
So I just want to address that quick, so we don't just,
Yeah.
pass that. You know, again, I'm going to go into the Tantra world. That's what's coming to me. And it's that understanding that we are multi-orgasmic. So it is very possible to wake up your partner and he has different bodies of energy, of joy, of pleasure. And there's a huge percentage of women who don't have orgasms, which is huge.
Mm.
It's like, it's something crazy, like over 60% or something. It's really, really big and very like sad. And again, it's because we've been trained to, like, that's the only way of pleasure is have an erection, and go for it. And then, everybody has this orgasm and it's game over. Well, it's not the case, so we got to address again the mind, have the right environment, the right setting, maybe starting with a massage or candles or essential oils, and especially again these comments or that we can hurt each other, or possibly people's been hurt in the past, with, this is not good, this is not good. So that will definitely shut the body down a lot. So Tantra and just conscious touch, that same meditation practice that I experienced, like I described for ourselves, we can do this with a partner. It's like, we're not even going to go there. Let's not even, go into, the sexual zones. It's like, let's just play with the body and see what happens. And all of a sudden, people can open up. I've seen miracles really happen in those experiences when we remove the pressure of performance. And for men, it's like so like anchored in them. It's like they must perform like that. They've been trained like that, right? To be strong. And yeah, so that's one thing, that relieving and removing that pressure will be step one. And then discovering and tending to the body, loving the body, and seeing what happens from there. So I wanted to answer that question for sure.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time. I hadn't seen that question. Yeah, definitely appreciate that. Taking time to know our boundaries, taking time to know our pleasure, and taking time with the other to know their boundaries and to know their pleasure. That's really, yeah, comes full circle.
Thank you, Mel, for having me here today. Your beautiful community.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. It really is. Definitely one of my pleasures right now. Definitely. And I will post the links to your 5-day challenge, and I can't wait to hop on and be a part of it. And yeah, it's going to be powerful for sure.
Amazing. Yeah. And committing to our pleasure is an awesome journey too.
Yes. I'm committed. Here goes. Wonderful.
Thank
Well,
you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning
yes,
in and spending this time with us.
definitely. Thank you. Okay. I'm not sure how to end this. Okay, here we go.